So, thank you everyone for coming tonight to our Community Safety Town Hall. My name is Boddye, I'm the Occupied District Supervisor, and tonight we're having sort of a holistic conversation about community safety. We have folks here from law enforcement, from the fire department, from schools, or the community safety initiative. We have sort of a good holistic talk about bringing community safety to our community and really moving the ball forward to bring down those silos between our different agencies and the community to really improve how we do things. So just a quick run of show for the night, and this will be recorded, so if anyone missed this or someone wants to go back and look at it afterward, our office will be putting this online. So run of show is, you all went through the refreshments and the registration phase. There are still plenty of refreshments in the back corner if you didn't get a chance to get those. Adam Hamby, my Constituent Services Director, is back there helping out over there. We're going to have opening remarks, which is what we're doing right now. We're going to introduce everyone. They're going to introduce themselves and what agency they represent. Then we'll be going through an overview of the Community Safety Initiative, and then all of our panels will sort of speak to their role when it comes to community safety. And then finally, we'll go through a Q&A. So a lot of folks who registered online ahead of time put in questions. We'll have those, we'll go through those, and then if there's time at the end, we'll go through questions from the audience as well. I know quite a few of you have already spoken to some of our panelists here, but we'll try to get to as many questions as we get through by the end. If for whatever reason we don't get to a question, or we don't have an immediate holistic answer for you here, we will take your question and make sure that our Community Constituent Service Director, Adam Hamby, has that for you. Also want to say thank you to my team and the folks here for doing this. My Chief of Staff, Julie Control, is in the back. Adam Hamby is my Constituent Service Director, and then Emily Guerrero is my Deputy Chief of Staff. Without further ado, we'll introduce our panelists. First, we'll start with Deputy County Executive Dan Alexander.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. I'm Dan Alexander, Deputy County Executive for Public Safety. And I'll hand it off to the next one on the list. Chief, you want to start us off?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Newsham. I'm the Chief of Police here in Prince William County. We have a presentation that we'll go through, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom LaBelle. I'm the Fire Chief for the Prince William County Fire Rescue System. Looking forward to talking.
Hi, I'm Michele Surdam. I'm the Director of the Department of Public Safety Communications Center in 911.
Good evening, everyone. Wesley, Dawson, the Director of Community Safety for Prince William County.
My name is Richard Weinmann. I'm the Prince William County Traffic Safety Engineering Branch Manager.
I'm Crowe, Director of Risk Management and Security, and we're glad to be here with you tonight. Appreciate the invitation from Supervisor.
I'm Vernon Bock. I'm Chief Operating Officer for the School Division, and Ron and I work very closely together. I also oversee nutrition facilities and transportation, as well as school safety, and obviously school safety is first and foremost and top of mind for us, so we're happy to be here to share with you our tiered approach to school safety.
Ready for us? All right. So we'll be handing off the baton as we go, so you want to listen to me the whole time, which is a huge advantage. Just from the outset, let me just say that in terms of our team, including everyone up here, we're very fortunate in this county to have a great group of professionals that are doing work around community safety. So these folks care about our community, invested here. They bring extraordinary competency to the table as it relates to what they're doing and overseeing and coordinating overall, and they're committed to our vision of making this a safe and secure community for all of our residents and guests to our community. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a somewhat of a long presentation, but very quickly. And it's going to hit on a number of different components. So what I ask you to do is think about questions that you might have. At the end, we'll take those questions and go from there. So what I'm going to do starting out is kind of give you an overview. Again, here's your presenters who've already been through this. Those are the folks who will be presenting tonight. We're going to start talking about our Community Safety Initiative, which is relatively new. I think we presented to the board in December regarding this. And this really came out of a discussion around how our county's changing, what we're seeing across the nation as it relates to community safety issues, and how we may take a more holistic approach to the way we look at community safety. Another reason why we did this is we took a look back at our guiding principles. We put together a strategic plan that reflected what the community told us is important in terms of what we should be looking at as a government. There's some key elements in here that speak directly to community safety. One is that we say we want to be a safe and caring community. again, directly relevant to what we're doing around community safety. Fortunately, not going to read this entire slide, but I'll highlight some key elements to this that it speak to a holistic, much more involved, community engaged approach to how we do community safety. We have words in here like multiple stakeholders, positive rapport, establishing an environment where everyone feels heard. This is part of the process here tonight, right? In terms of what we're trying to do. But we want to make sure that whatever we're doing in each of the elements of what we do around community safety, that we're remembering that this is important to you and important to us as a community. So I'm going to give you a scaled down version of what we presented to the board around this concept called the Community Safety Initiative. This is a very provocative way of kind of describing how we're going to look at community safety as we move forward. And we're borrowing a concept from the Marine Corps called left to bang. So for the Marine Corps, bang really represents anything that negative that happens in a combat environment. It could be an improvised explosive device, it could be an ambush. And what they said in their thinking and the way they developed their programming is, how do we keep our Marines safe in the combat environment by thinking on the left side of this equation? So for us, really, bang in a community means any harmful event that might occur to our residents and our citizens in our community. It could be a car crash, it could be a shooting, it could be an overdose, it could be suicide. All right, and so instead of focusing on being reactive, what can we do on the front end of all of these things that happen in our community in order to prevent some of these things? Instead of simply handling the damage, let's prevent these events from occurring to the best of our ability from an engaged, data-driven approach to a holistic community safety program. What we're looking to establish as part of this overall initiative is a community safety initiative that's holistic, evidence-informed, equitable, and inclusive, using data and active community engagement to determine our priorities and our action plans. Now, there's several steps that we're going to go through as part of that process, and this applies to how we look at the broad approach and to specific issues that we deal with within the community. We want to make sure we build collaboration and constantly go back to the community through every aspect of this and every step in the process. Part of this collaboration will involve establishing an advisory committee. And that committee will involve multiple disciplines in government, but more importantly, also the community and community members that are advising us as we go through this process and looking at what we need to do. We want to engage and assess what's going on. We want to make sure that we have a solid plan and implement. We want to ensure success by going back and engaging and measuring what we're doing as we go. We want to measure success and make sure that what we're doing makes sense. And if it makes sense, we want to create sustainability around it. We want to create evangelists and folks that are getting behind these programs and approaches that work for community safety. So what would it look like in Prince William County? I talked earlier about the Community Safety Advisory Committee managed by our director, Mr. Dawson. And here are the different organizations, if you look at the right side of this graphic, who would be providing input, would be looking at strategies, looking at the data and what's happening, recommending programming around whatever we're doing around community safety. So it's worth mentioning community organization, trusted voices, schools and higher education, criminal justice agencies, recreation, parks, libraries, transportation, human service agencies, and of course our public safety agencies, as all part of that dynamic in the way we look at community safety. Some of the areas of focus that we might look at include traffic safety. You'll hear some of that tonight. Community violence intervention, substance misuse, panhandling. I know has been a big issue and continues to be one in our community. Human trafficking, and really anything that the community brings back to us and said, hey, this is a problem. This is something that we want to look at. And the big part of this is making sure we're tailoring something that's not only data informed but makes sense for Prince William County. We're not just looking to replicate something that's had success somewhere else if it doesn't fit what we need in our community based on what the community is telling us. This graphic here is really just, and again, we're not going to go through all of this, but it really represents a lot of the things that we are doing, or we could be doing, or maybe we could be doing better together as it relates to the left side of bank, and being proactive in terms of our approach to looking at community safety. And again, when we think community safety, a lot of it, and even in my prior life in policing, is very focused on policing, which is understandable, right? That's a big part of it. But we have a lot of other things that go on out there, emergency management, you know, the whole issue of providing emergency medical services to our community and looking at better integrated health approaches to how we look at those issues, right? There's a lot of things that we are probably doing around homeless resources, peer counseling, conflict mediation, we got neighborhood watch, effective property management, life skills, mentoring, job placement. These are all things that we should be doing or are doing, and maybe we just need to do a better job of kind of organizing and getting around these things as time goes on, to avoid some of those negative outcomes that occur. Now, we're not undervaluing or in any way being critical of what happens on the right side of this equation. You know, there's a role for an appropriate use of prosecution, arrest, reentry, probation, parole, right? These are all part of the system, for sure. I'd also say that there's some value that folks who are involved in this bring to the front end of the equation, right? It's important to talk to probation and parole about what good reentry looks like and getting folks to stay on the left side of this equation. So there's an understanding that there's value for all of us in this ecosystem of safety to contribute to what we're trying to accomplish around community safety. It's a big lift. We're talking about a pretty broad scope in terms of the things that we would like to deal with. But as you all know, a lot of these things overlap. You know, someone on the side of the road asking for money probably, potentially, has an issue with substance misuse, right? Or maybe homelessness. So a lot of these things overlap. And we talk about school safety. Well, school safety doesn't exist in a vacuum. You know, what's happening in schools affects the community. What's happening in the community affects the schools. So we're doing a better job now, and we'll continue to do a better job of trying to bring everyone to the table as it relates to this. I'm going to borrow Wesley here and say that you know, we're looking to call people in, not call people up, right? We want to make sure that, you know, we're not at the single point thing. We're actually bringing folks together to bring forward meaningful solutions as it relates to what we're trying to do around community safety. So I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm going to introduce Wesley and have him talk a little bit about next steps himself, first of all. He's brand new, so take it easy on him. And then talk a little bit about next steps in the office.
I don't know if I've gotten used to taking it easy this year, and it keeps you busy. But thank you all again for having me here, and thank you, Supervisor Boddye. I have been on the job a little over a month now, and have met with many folks in the community and still trying to get involved with a lot more of what's happening. A lot of departments that you see here are going to be routinely having the same discussions in the community. We know that no one entity on this stage here, on this panel, has the single answer, right? The way that we get to the answers are all together, and often the answers are right in the community. It's just figuring out how do we work together to get to the other side of that. So specifically talking about what Dan has already shared, making sure that things are people-based. We're working with individuals who have experienced a certain level of trauma, and making sure that our experiences with people in the community are trauma-informed, and making sure that they're tailored to individual needs and concerns. Also making sure that they're place-based, that they represent the communities that we're in. You know that public safety looks and feels different to everyone in the county, and we want to make sure that we're taking into account all of that as we're having these conversations and these discussions. So really looking forward to talking with you all more at length. This won't be the only opportunity, so you won't just see me here in the library and never see me again. If you have community events or you have HOAs, things of that nature, where you're having meetings, I would like to be there and also bring some of my friends who are helping me out with this as well. So really appreciate your all's time and look forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Wesley, appreciate it. So we're gonna move on, and I'll ask Michele Surdam, our Director of Public Safety Communications, to come up and talk about what we're doing there. The first of the first responders, these are the most important people you never see, because they're on the other end of the phone line, making sure you get the resources you need. So appreciate the work that they do, and Michele, tell you.
Good evening. Show my thunder alert a little bit. So I was just gonna say, you know, if we're looking at the continuum of public safety response and public safety entities, we are the first of the first responders. Who are you gonna call? Not Ghostbusters, you're gonna call 911 or our non-emergency line. And these are just some of the wonderful people that are behind the headset, when you call in. This was a picture from every year we do a telecommunicator week recognition. So this was just one of the ways we wanted to do a shout out to the folks that work there. We're part of the National Capital Region, as are all of the agencies here. We provide full service for 911 for 5 municipalities, and by that, what I mean is Union County as the overarching, and then the 4 incorporated towns, but we also dispatch for Manassas and Manassas Park Fire and Rescue. We're a 30-seat PSAP. PSAP means Public Safety Answering Point. So we have 30 positions, authorized strength of 123. Currently, we have a vacancy of 16. Some information about our different technology vendors. We are the first nationally accredited public safety center in Virginia. In fact, we are just wrapping up our 20th year as an accredited center. Had our on-site assessment this past week. APCO International Accredited Training Program, emergency medical dispatch. So if you call in and you have an EMS situation, a medical situation, we provide emergency medical instructions prior to the units arriving on the scene, which could be anything from CPR instructions, bleeding mitigation, birth. We have a program called the Stork Award, which is given to our call takers who have actually assisted over the phone with the arrival of newborns. We have text to 911 compatibility, next generation 911 infrastructure, which means instead of our calls coming in through an old, not to get into the weeds, but our old canvas trunks, they now come over the EZNet. Remodeled state-of-the-art facility that was completed in 2020, and we have a fully functional backup site on the west end of the county. Some of the things that we're engaged in the community with the other partners in public safety. Every year there's a community fair held in September, and we present a certificate to the children who've been nominated for Make the Right Call Award, and that's children who have called in emergency situations, and no adult was able to provide the information, often calling reference to their parents, and we provide an award to them in recognition for doing a great job. We also have a strong community outreach team that attends community events and assists with recruitment. We were down in Dumfries for a National Night Out. We have a team that's out tonight at Unity Braxton doing a school event, so we're around the community quite a bit. Just some statistics. We are a very busy center now. I've been with the county for 34 years, and I can tell you from the time that I started to the time that we're at now, things have changed a lot. We do text to 911 testing, but we have about 64 text to 911 calls that have been dispatched over the last calendar year, 152,000 wireless 911 calls. So about 85% of our 911 calls are via wireless devices. We do about 7,461 foreign language calls for service. Spanish is obviously our highest foreign language, but some of the others, and this is dependent on the month, but these are typically the highest, falling far behind Spanish, but we do have a language line service that allows for easy access to interpretation. When you look at the dispatch number of police calls for service, we take a lot more calls than that, but these are the calls that we actually dispatch. A lot of calls are put in for our teleserve unit, which does over-the-phone reporting, or for CopLogic, and a lot of calls that are technically dispatched are officers who are calling out incidents such as vehicle stops and things like that. Fire and rescue, also dispatch calls 55,607. When to call 911? We have a very good social media team of 2, and I hope that you guys will be joiners of the social media platforms, Facebook and X. I was about to say Twitter, but X. But when to call 911 versus calling the non-emergency line. And this is something we try to emphasize to folks whose non-emergency is for anything that's not life-threatening or doesn't need immediate attention. But emergencies are for fire, medical, and emergency, crimes in progress, and threats to life and property. We have a very well advertised non-emergency line. A lot of people will use that for their calls for other agencies within the county, and we can certainly refer to other phone numbers if needed. Just a little bit about our radio system. We have 10 radio sites now, which is quite a few more than we had when I first started. And they're placed throughout the county, a couple in Fairfax and Fauquier. And then we are always hiring. As you saw, we're down some positions, but we have paid training and excellent benefits. And one big thing that might draw people to that is we only work 16 shifts per month. And that means 16 days or nights, depending on what kind of schedule you're on. So if you know anyone who's looking for a job, we're a great place to be. We really would love to have some folks come in and do a so-long or come join us, so.
Okay, good evening again. These are the things I'm going to talk about quickly tonight, but I think the most important thing is when we get to the question and answer section. I'm going to talk about crime, and I hope you will bear with me. I think I have 3 slides on crime. I want to put the crime in context so you have a complete understanding of what's going on here in Prince William County. As I go through the slides, you will see that. I'll talk about our staffing and the issues that we have surrounding staffing, which is not unique to Prince William County. We have law enforcement has suffered staffing challenges across the country, which is just like everybody else. I'll talk about our community survey, which was recently released. That's something that we have to do every 2 years to maintain our accreditation. It was very positive, the results that we got. And what the survey is about is to try and determine the satisfaction that the folks who live in Prince William County have with the police services that they're receiving. Talk about that in detail, and I'll talk about some of our community engagement, some of our upcoming events. On the crime side, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the district commander, Captain Castilla, is here. Ruben is our captain responsible for our central district, which most of the Potomac district falls within his area of responsibility. These are the numbers on countywide crime year to date compared to the same time last year. So it's comparing it year to year. Very troubling to see that we've had an increase in homicides. Talking about context, I can talk about the homicides in a little bit more detail. We do not have people run around here just randomly killing folks in Prince William County. 13 of the 14 cases that we've had, the offender and the victim knew each other. And I'll give you a breakdown of those. 5 of our cases so far this year were domestic in nature. 3 of them that happened in one incident. It was a group of friends who had been out all night. There was drugs and alcohol involved. They continued the party into the next day. Somebody in the home disrespected the shooter in the case, and what he ended up doing is he shot 4 people and killed 3 of them in one incident. Very troubling, but if you're not going to be out all night partying and drinking and doing drugs and hanging around with folks who might be inclined to be involved in this type of behavior, you're probably going to be safe here in Prince William. 2 of the cases were where we had a situation where there was a former intimate partner and a current intimate partner, and the person that they had this relationship was there. And so 2 of the cases were those circumstances where essentially an old boyfriend killed a new boyfriend, or vice versa, the boyfriend killed an old boyfriend. One was a landlord-tenant dispute, extremely tragic. We had a suspect in that case who appeared to have some kind of mental health issues, ended up killing their landlord. And one was the result of a drug transaction. And one is unknown. Of the 14 homicides we've had, 8 of the cases have been closed with an arrest. 4 of the cases, one of them, that case that I talked about with the 3 people that were killed in one incident, we have a warrant for the suspect in that case. That person has fled the country. We have our federal authorities that are assisting us and our international authorities trying to take that person into custody. I know what countries he's in, but I'm not going to discuss it here. But we feel very confident that at some point we're going to be able to take him into custody. And then we have a warrant in another case. That person, we believe, is in the region. We just increased the reward in that case, so anyone who gives us information to get that person into custody will receive a $10,000 reward. Forcible rape, again, it's another scary thing to talk about, and it is troubling to see that we have an increase in our sexual assaults. But of those 60 cases that we've had here in the county, in each of those cases, the suspect and the victim knew each other, and a lot of those cases have been closed with arrest. A lot of the sexual assaults that occur here in Prince William County involve either family or friends of the victim. Doesn't make it any less scary, doesn't make it any less tragic, but it's not something that's happened randomly. So we don't have stranger cases occurring here in Prince William County. And if we did, you would hear from us, and we would be putting alerts out telling you that there was a stranger situation out here and you gotta be careful. Aggravated assaults, those have been going up pretty dramatically in the last couple of years. It's leveled off so far this year. Robberies, now that's the case probably of all the cases that we look at that is most concerning to folks, because robberies have a tendency to be random. So to see those numbers up, I'm going to go back to the Potomac District on the next slide to show you where we are here. Is something that we're working on very, very hard to ensure we bring that number down. Our burglaries are about even. Motor vehicle thefts, at the beginning of the year, we had a huge problem with motor vehicle theft. In particular, two manufacturers, the Hyundai and the Kia, were being stolen not only here in Prince William County, but across the region and across the country. In fact, somebody put on YouTube a video showing young people how to steal these cars in a very simple way. And that led to a lot of our, particularly juveniles, stealing these cars. That has actually tailed off. Both Kia and Hyundai have taken some steps to either provide folks with locking devices in their vehicles, or they've changed, so they've recalled some of the cars and they've fixed some of that. So that has started to tail off as the year has progressed. But we started the year with such a high number that's why our stolen autos. The other thing I will say about stolen autos here in Prince William County, a significant number of our stolen autos are taken while the car is running, and it's left unoccupied. So I say that whenever I come to a community meeting, don't do that. Please. So, you know, during COVID, we had an increase in the number of deliveries that have happened, and that really, you know, has become a way of life for some folks to have things delivered to their home. And so our delivery drivers can be guilty of that, leaving the car running in the street. But we also have people that will pull up to our convenience stores and our gas stations, leave their car running, and next thing you know, the car is headed down the street. So please don't do that. Same thing with our people that are breaking into cars. A large percentage of the cars that are being broken into are cars that are left open. So people are leaving their cars open. They're leaving valuables in the vehicle. Somebody will come down, they'll check all the door handles, they'll see one that's open, and they'll go in and they'll take the value of the car. Last thing I'll say on the steal theft from autos, last year we had over 200 guns that were stolen out of cars. In some of those instances, the gun was left in the center console and the car was left unlocked. So I'm all for legal gun ownership, I'm okay with that, but you also have to be a responsible gun owner. When a gun is stolen out of a car, it automatically moves from being a legal gun to being an illegal gun. And there's a strong likelihood that that gun, once it's stolen out of the car, is going to be used in gun violence in our community. So we don't want that to happen. Here's the numbers right here for the Occoquan district, and you can see the numbers are a lot lower. Most of your numbers are equal. The homicide that you had here in the Occoquan district happened in the community off of Davis Ford Road. It was a double homicide. It was one incident. It was an older adult child who murdered his parents, who were, I want to say, late 60s, early 70s. Horrible case. Horrible case. All three of them actually ended up dying on the scene. It was 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Terrible case. Happened indoors. So that's your homicide that you have. And again, if you look at the numbers, they're generally running about the same as last year, other than the motor vehicle theft. Here's where we put our crime into context in Prince William County, because oftentimes you'll hear people say, back in the good old days, it was much safer here in Prince William County, and we didn't have a lot of crime. That's actually not true. If you go back, we actually had more crime, a higher crime rate, let's put it that way, back in 2009 than we do today. That line going across the middle is the average for that time period. So last year, we were still a little bit below the average. If you look at 2020 and 2021, those were our COVID years. So we saw a pretty dramatic decrease during COVID. One of the things that's happening now is we're returning to pre-COVID crime rates. But unfortunately, we're also seeing a little bit of an uptick in crime, just like the rest of the country is seeing. So that's one of the things, that's our challenge at the police department, is to keep that under control and get that crime number moving in the other direction. Talking about staffing, right now, the Prince William County Police Department has 64 sworn vacancies. Our authorized strength is 707. So right around December of last year, we were closer to 100 vacancies. After George Floyd was murdered in 2021, May 25th, 2021, all of the unrest that followed after that, police departments across the country, young people lost interest in joining this profession. And that has lasted, that has resonated for the last several years. One of the other things that happened is there was a competition in Virginia amongst agencies on pay. And so what happened in Prince William County is our pay dipped below some of our surrounding jurisdictions. And what we were seeing here in the county is some of our officers were leaving to go to those other jurisdictions to make more money for their families. You can't blame them for that. They want to support their families. But what our Board of County Supervisors did, thankfully, in January of this year, is they increased our pay so it's competitive with surrounding jurisdictions. Since that has happened, a couple of things have happened. Fewer people are leaving the agency, a lot fewer people are leaving the agency, which is good, stop the bleeding. The other thing is we've seen pretty significant increases in our class sizes. So now we've gone from close to 100 vacancies to 64. I am very hopeful that we have another class coming in October, which should cut that number by about a third. And so if I get 2 more classes in that size, we should be where we need to be. And so I'm having 4 classes a year, so that's relatively near future. We should be up to our authorized strength. I have a staffing study going on right now. My sense is that 707 police officers is not enough for Prince William County. So if the staffing study supports that, then we will be asking for more police officers. One of the things, and I'll talk about this in our community satisfaction survey that was done, they gave at the end of the survey, they asked an open-ended question: what would you like to see more in Prince William County? And the majority of the folks who responded said they want to see more police. So I think that there's a community ask out there. I believe that we probably need more police. We'll do a staffing study and see if that is accurate. So you'll see that coming in the near future. One of the things that we also did in collaboration with the Board of County Supervisors, if you look over there on the right, when we were having a lot of challenges getting hiring police officers, what we did is we civilianized a lot of the positions that we had. So we were given, through the budget, we were given 16 positions, and what that allowed us to do was to hire professional staff to take those jobs and take the sworn patrol officer out of that position and put them out into operation. So that was very successful. It was a Band-Aid, but the Band-Aid was very successful in helping us. That's a look. When I was talking about our academy classes, you can look, we had 22, 7, 14. Now our numbers are up mid-20s and 30. We're expecting 30 coming in October. All good news on the staffing front. This is the satisfaction survey that I talked about. The entire survey is actually on our website. If anybody in here is a statistician or they have questions about how it was implemented, this is how it did. These grades are really, really outstanding, even if you compare us to other jurisdictions. One of the things that I will say, I haven't been here in Prince William County that long, coming up on 3 years. You have a police department that treats folks with dignity and respect. And I believe that's the reason why you have those ratings here in Prince William County. As the chief of police, I frequently watch our interactions that we have with the public. And usually the interactions I have to watch are when our officers have to use some type of force. Almost every one of those, I watch the body on camera. You would be amazed. It is remarkable how well that our police officers treat folks under some very, very extreme and difficult circumstances. Particularly when they're dealing with folks who are having a mental health crisis, so that person is not in the right state of mind. God bless these folks that are doing this job. They do an awesome job here in Prince William County. Lastly, a couple of community events. We just had our National Night Out. I'll have to say, this is my 3rd year doing National Night Out here in Prince William County. I went to the east first, I went to the west, and I went to the central. Central had the most biggest turnout. You guys did an awesome job. Those of you that were involved at it, was really, really fun. This coming Saturday, at the Walmart, there's gonna be a back-to-school supply drive, Special Olympics playing pool. Prince William County does a really good job about supporting the Special Olympics. That's out at Dulles Airport. It's a full day of fun events, and you can actually watch. They literally pull an airplane with a rope to earn money for Special Olympics. And this Community Day, this is going to be our 3rd Community Day, September 16th from noon to 4 over at the McCourt Complex on the plaza. Live music. I think our new fire chief may actually sing. You're going to sing for us?
He starts thinking about it.
But we have live music. We're going to have all kinds of the folks around the county who provide services to our community that will be there. The fire department will be out there with static displays. We'll have our horses out there. There'll be food trucks. So it's a great event. It's 4 hours. If you have the opportunity, please join us. It's fun, fun, fun. We're also going to we're featuring for the first year, we're going to have a dunk tank. So we haven't decided yet who's going to be in the dunk tank. We're going to ask some of our.
He was looking at me when he said that.
We're going to ask some of our elected leaders, but no. But it should be a fun, fun time. And then lastly, like Michele said, we're continuing to look for service-minded people, people of integrity, to join this police department. If you know a young person, I can tell you, I've been doing this for almost 34 years, what this job is about helping people. It really is. I don't care what you've seen on TV, a couple of bad incidents we've seen police involved in. The people who do this work are good people. They're service-minded. They're people of integrity. If you know a young person who's like that, they want to do this kind of work, they want to help people, send them our way. We have not only our police jobs, we have our cadet jobs and our explorer jobs for young people. So I look forward to answering your questions. I'm going to now hand it over to our new fire chief.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is LaBelle. I've been here for 100 days. I like what I see so far. So, but before I go any further, I want to point out quickly, Assistant Chief Matt Smolsky is here with us. Matt is the fire marshal for the county, and next to him is Battalion Chief Kim Stewart, and she serves as our executive officer. So if you have questions and you don't catch up to me, they probably know more than I do. For those who don't know, we're a combination system, and that means we have both career staff and volunteer staff throughout the county. Currently made up, the system overall is currently made up of 9 different organizations, the DFR, which is the career staff, and then 8 volunteer organizations. I serve as the system chief, so I oversee the DFR, but also the system as a whole. You won't be surprised, we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and as you already were told, we put about 55,000 calls a year. We do a lot more than fire suppression. The good news is fires are down, mostly to a lot of the work that Matt and his team does. But we provide all sorts of emergency service. When you call 911 and you're not sure who you need, quite often you'll get us. And we're more than happy to come out. We also have the emergency management office in our fire department, which is pretty common across the country. Matt's shop also manages public education, both in the schools as well as the community as a whole, and also code compliance. So, the biggest thing we do is EMS. It's about 80 to 82% of those 55,000 calls. You can break it up into two things, BLS, very basic life support, and advanced life support. The majority of our calls right now that we run are ALS calls. But they are not ALS calls. They're ALS calls because we have ALS units and we send them and provide ALS service, of course, with their ALS unit. That really only makes up about 20% of the real calls or ALS calls. 80% are BLS. So, recognizing that overall that continues to grow as we get more skilled care facilities, as we have an aging population, there's more call for EMS service. Obviously, we do fire suppression. It's in the name, but again, we do less and less of that. Technical rescue, everything from hazmat calls, confined space, water rescue, all of those technical expertise are some of the things we do. And again, disaster preparedness and relief. So when we think about fire and EMS protection, we think about time. We need to get the right people, both training and quantity, the right equipment, whether it's a fire truck or an ambulance, to you in the right amount of time. And so our goals overall, we count in seconds. We're not quite as good as Amazon tracking, but that's where we're shooting for. And so anything over 4 minutes is difficult for us. And right now we're running about 92% of the time for an ALS call, we'll have an ALS unit at your door 92% of the time in 4 minutes or less. So we're really pushing for that. Not quite as well on the fire side, but we continue to work to achieve that. Part of the reason we're having a problem with some of our numbers is we're getting busier. The map on the left shows overall the county and the sort of the first due areas for each one of those stations, the little black mark. And you can see as you look from left to right, the areas that have gotten bigger, particularly Occoquan and the East End. It's not going to be surprising to anyone, but it becomes problematic because one of the key things that people don't always think about is we're probably sending more than one unit to your emergency, which means not only do you get the fire station closest to you, you get another fire station. Well, the busier your community is, the more often that other fire stations come to your community, which means they're not in their fire station when they have a call. And so it's this trickle-down effect. So it is a system. It's easy to think of it in terms of your fire station, but when we look at it, we look at that entire domino effect response. And again, you can see some of the specific areas. The good news is the Board of Supervisors and the County Executive's Office started to support the development of more stations. And as you can see, they're predominantly to this side of the county where most of the concerns are. And so as we start to take a look at what those will mean, and just really quickly, Station 30 up at Fortuna Way, up in Four Seasons area, Station 35, Innovation over by the University, Station 36, and then up near Bull Run, and then the stations down along. The next one coming along will be actually Station 27 over on Spriggs Road, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like, what happens to our community when we get a station there. And then if folks know where Station 23 is, another one closer to Station 23, if you drive over there, you can see how quickly things are developing. And we don't build fire stations for the community as it looks like today. We're doing our job right. We're looking at the county's master plan and building the station for 15 to 20 years down So the map on the left shows the current 4-minute response area, the sort of beige brown area. And so basically we show where the station is and we say, okay, how far can we get in 4 minutes on the current road networks? And as you can see, where station 27 and 30 are currently projected to go, we can't get there in 4 minutes. And so when station 27 goes in, you can see that very light beige. We catch a great deal. But not only do we get that 4-minute grab, we'll also be less reliant on the other stations, which means you will see a positive impact 3 to 4 stations away, because they won't be as busy coming down to this area. And so, that's it. To be honest with you, I've been here again 100 days, working on my strategic plan for the fire department. The fire department is not accredited, unlike the police department and the communications center, but it's one of the things we're going to be working on as we move down the road. So, look forward to questions later on.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, supervisors and chiefs. My name is Richard Weinmann. I'm the Traffic Safety Engineer Branch Manager here at Prince William County Department of Transportation. I'm a little bit different to all these other people, and I'm the first of the non-emergency staff. And I think it's very important that the county is committed to safety, and that's our role. So firstly, Prince William County Department of Transportation is not Virginia Department of Transportation. Virginia State maintains, operates most of the roads in the county, and most of the other roads in the county are privately owned. So we kind of sit in between those, and one of the main roles of Prince William County Department of Transportation is to meet your transportation needs. And when we talk about transportation needs, we're not talking about cars, we're talking about everything: cars, buses, sidewalks, trails, VRE. We work for you to try and get your needs out there. As has been said, the county is rapidly growing, we're changing, we're a very diverse county, second largest population, geographically the largest county in Virginia. So we've got a lot of challenges, and the needs on the eastern side of the county are completely different to the west and everything in between. So at the top there, you got my information. Please share it with everyone. My team's managers, we don't know what we don't know. We're dependent on you, the community, to come to us, tell us what your needs are, so we can try to address those. And also my colleagues here in Fire and Rescue Schools, we team up to try to get that. So the primary responsibilities of the Prince William County Traffic Safety Branch, we have four staff members, including myself. We have the Residential Traffic Management Guide. This is available online. You can also get it from the supervisors. Inside it talks about general things: parking, traffic calming, and those kind of processes to get those kind of things. We're very focused on the local roads. We don't look at the interstates and those kind of things. My team, we work for grassroots type stuff. The second thing we also have is a street lighting program. Right? We have a street lighting coordinator. He works with developers as well as county supervisors and communities to try to identify street lighting. This is street lighting. Our focus is, of course, transportation. So we're looking at crosswalks, sidewalks, intersections. This is not the general, lighting that you see, because we want to focus on those conflict points to improve safety. My team also responds to any traffic type of inquiries. So if you've got a question, what happened here? Why is this sign like this? What's the signal timing here? You want to reach out to VDOT, I'm happy with VDOT response. Come to my team. Or if you just have a silly question, I get questions. The hardest question I've had to answer in this job came from a 10-year-old. So, my mom called me and asked me a question that I stumped me. So, I work for you. I'm a resident of Prince William County. So my team, we represent you to VDOT, to the state, to the different agencies. And also, if you're not happy with a response, we will try to translate that for you to make it more sensible. We also help all these other agencies, schools, developers, police, fire rescue, with any of their needs. If they see something, we try to fix it, or work with them to do it. And we facilitate and implement safety projects. These are sidewalks, crosswalks, streetlights, whatever it is, we'll take them on. And we represent the county on all traffic safety issues at different levels, in MCOG, at community meetings, all those kind of things. So please invite us out to any of these meetings. We want to come out and meet you. We want to know what your issues are. At the bottom there, we do speed studies as part of our traffic calming program. So I know there was a question about it. We'll get into that a little later, I'm sure. But we actually, that number for last year was closer to 200. And what the final numbers in. So my team of 4 staff do about 400 traffic counts a year. That's on top of all our field reviews, all our meetings, and all those kind of things. So we're very active in what we've got. There's a couple of URLs there. Please reach out to those. If you don't have those, any of these people can put you in contact with me and somebody in the supervisor's office. 2 big projects we've got going on at the moment. First one is comprehensive traffic safety action plan. We were fortunate enough to get about $1 million from federal highways for Safe Streets for All grants to develop a comprehensive traffic safety action plan. So what is a comprehensive traffic safety action plan? Basically, it's a plan where we look at ways to reduce the number of accidents. And our focus is basically to identify measures to reduce fatalities and severe injuries across the country by looking at near misses and less severe crashes. Again, this is in line with the left of bang philosophy that the police are working on. And to do this, we have 4 focus areas, and this is in line with the Virginia Highway Safety Action Plan. It's the 4 E's of traffic safety: injuring, enforcement, education, and emergency response. And today you can see all the stakeholders are here today with us. We're currently rolling this out. We're setting up working groups, and we're going to be pulling data. For example, we look a lot at crash data. A crash data tells us a small story on what is actually happening on the roads, because that's only what gets a police report. We don't currently look at how many calls for service there are, right? That will give us a lot more depth, those near misses and those kind of things. So that's one of the things we're going to look at, and it's a whole safe streets approach. Everything from education, reaching out with schools, reaching out with police, fire rescue, community, to find out what your needs are so we can try and get that information out to you. Because ultimately, we cannot build our way to safer roads. We have to change people's behavior and work on that. That's the plan behind that. The other thing that we have going on, and I know this is in a lot of areas quite a contentious issue, but we've been working for the last 1.5 years looking at automated photo enforcement. The board in April authorized a pilot program for 1 year. It's got a sunset clause in. So if we can't show that there's a safety benefit to the community, that program will go away. So the pilot program, what are we looking at? We're looking at school zones, work zones, and red light running. That's it. We've got 8 school zones that we're looking at. We've got 1 unit that will be placed in work zones in Prince William County Department of Transportation work zones. And we're going to be looking at 8 high crash incidents intersections. We're rolling that out now. We've got an RFP out, and we'll be rolling that out in the fall, and then it will sunset in end of August next year. So a lot of questions about that. Who will get tickets? What those will mean? Again, this is in line with that left of bang approach. It's a civil citation, so that means it's a fine. It will not affect your driving record or anything like that. I think it's pretty lenient, me personally. You only get a ticket if you're going 11 miles over the posted speed limit. So that means to get a ticket in a school zone, that school zone has to be active, it has to be flashing, and let's say the speed limit is 25, that means you've got to be going 36 or higher, and you'll get a ticket. We similarly, red light running, it will only be vehicles that actually enter the intersection after that light has turned red and traverse through the intersection. So if you get caught in the intersection or something like that, you're not going to get a ticket. All the data that we collect from this will be available to the public, and we welcome any thoughts on that. In Prince William, in Occoquan District, the areas we're looking at will be Woodbridge High School, that school's on Old Road, and the intersection that we identified with high crashes is the Harbour Drive Occoquan intersection. That's all I have. Please reach out to us if you have any transportation related questions, and we'll get to that. And with that, I believe passing on to schools.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, Richard. I'm Vernon, Bock, Chief Operating Officer for Prince William County Schools. And before I get started, I want to thank Supervisor Boddye for inviting us here to be able to share with you. I did tell Dan up front, Ron and I have been on the road show this past year presenting our tiered approach to safety. For us to really give you a presentation would be about an hour long. I'm really excited to share with you though, that we think about school safety like Swiss cheese. The more layers that we add together, we start to fill in all of those holes. I'd love to be able to stand in front of everybody here to tell you there's something that we can do to make sure to ensure everyone's safety in school. There's nothing that I can say or do that is a foolproof system for safety, but by taking this approach and having this layered approach, what I think we've done is minimized as much as possible for anybody to get hurt in our schools. I will tell you that, and Dr. McDade, our superintendent, and Dr. Lateef said this at the dais in our last board meeting, they're committed to really, if there's cutting edge, new research out there, new items out there that can enhance our safety in our schools to protect our greatest treasure in our community, that we're committed to doing that. So I don't have a formal presentation to share with you. Ron's here with me tonight. He's our Director of Risk Management and School Safety. But the safety of 92,000 students are entrusted in us, and we take that very seriously. And that's always at the top of our mind. I'll just share with you a few things that we're doing. And some of it we keep close to the vest because we don't want the general public to know what some of our security measures are, because that gives up some of our control around some of those things. But, we've seen a significant investment in personnel, and I want to thank the chief. I think we have a wonderful partnership with everybody here at the table. Dan and I, we've been working very closely now, and we're meeting on a monthly basis, schools and everybody here at the table, to really plan to talk about all these measures that we have in place and how can we work together to enhance safety and security. But our superintendent has made a significant investment in personnel. This year alone, we've added over 100 security staff members to our school division. And we're one of the only school division that I know of that has full-time security at our elementary schools. That's almost unheard of to find a dedicated safety personnel at an elementary school. Chief provides us highly trained school SROs. They're full-time police officers. They're in our secondary schools. We appreciate that partnership. I think it's a wonderful partnership. And I will say, I think our SROs are masterful at establishing those relationships with kids. And oftentimes, that's a pipeline, that trusted relationship. A kiddo comes into school and will seek out their SRO and say, hey, I heard such and such. And then that gives us the opportunity to respond. So I think they do a wonderful job of establishing those relationships. We have currently 7 community service officers in our community. These are armed security officers who were former police officers. It's one of the only programs in the state, I think, a couple, where there's only a few. And we're adding 5 community service officers. These officers are out patrolling actively in our school division and making rounds throughout our school division. The security officers that I mentioned that are in our district, we have several of those at each of our schools. Their focus is on conducting security rounds throughout the school day. So many of you know all of our schools are locked. And we want to make sure that the doors remain locked during the school day. Well, Ron and his team have put barcodes on all of our exterior doors, so as our security assistants are making their way around buildings, they're scanning the QR code system, so we're keeping track of the security rounds that our assistants are doing on the exterior of our schools. How many rounds, Ron?
55,000 in May.
Yeah, 55,000. So our security officers every hour are making their rounds around the school, making sure that somebody didn't leave a door propped open, a door didn't secure, and that's really our greatest measure in hardening our schools, is keeping those exterior doors secure and locked.
I will say we've made an investment in training. Ron's got 4 full-time staff members in the department that are focused on crisis management training. They go out to our schools and train our students and staff around crisis management. We adopted a new nationally recognized plan this year. We went from a 3-inch binder of crisis management plan to a 32-page document and a 1-page wall chart that is a quick reference, easy to understand, very clear language, and we're training all of our folks around the division around that. A couple other things that I'll mention, our approach is really deter, detect, and defend. And so many of the things that I talk about are really to deter. We're hardening our schools. We're installing a glazing product on the exterior of our entrances that is an intruder, an armed intruder can't shoot through. You can shoot it 32 times, hit it with a battering ram, and you still can't gain access. Many of you have seen in the national news how some of these shooters are getting into schools. They're shooting their way right through the front entrance. Well, we've taken steps to eliminate that. We're implementing the Evolve system. Many of you may have heard about that. Ron and I have been out on the road a lot talking about this year. It's really a weapons detection screening system. It's an artificial intelligence system so that when our students enter, it's not like your TSA experience where you're divesting everything, putting it in a tray, everybody's going through single file. That would be a really annoying experience, and it would take us a day to get 2,600 kids into a high school. This is really a high volume system. It's used by a lot of our professional sports organizations locally and nationally. We can get 2,600 kids through that system in about 20 minutes. They're not divesting. It really is a system that's trained to detect weapons of mass casualty, i.e. guns, gun barrels, parts of guns, explosives, and large knives. So that's going to be implemented this fall. We'll start that within the 3rd week of school, and we'll be phasing that in. Just a couple other things to mention, and then we're going to turn it over for some Q&A along with these folks. We do have a couple other things. We have an anonymous reporting system that's staffed 24 hours a day. It's called Say Something. We have life safety tips that come in there. Ron and his team monitor this. We've had a tip come in at 2 a.m. where a classmate, their friend was talking about harming themselves during the school day. A classmate, teenagers are staying up till 1 or 2 in the morning sometimes. We'll have a tip come through at 2 a.m., a life safety tip. That allows Ron and his team to immediately respond. And most of the time we're collaborating with law enforcement. They're sending officers over to the house to do a wellness check, to search to see if there are any weapons. And we believe we've really been proactive in keeping kids from harming themselves. And have several instances that we could share with you where that's happened at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. We also have a system called Bock, which is an email system that overlays students' email. So if a student were to be researching suicide or to type a message to their friend that they're considering harming themselves or others, we get an immediate alert. It allows our team to respond, to provide supports and interventions to that student to prevent something from happening. So I'm sharing with you, there's a whole lot more layers. I could do an hour-long presentation on this, but just kind of want to highlight to you some of the things that we are doing because we do believe our kids are our greatest treasure. We want to keep them as safe as we can, and we don't want violence coming into our schools. So we're committed to doing as much as we can to keep that from happening. Ron, anything you want to add? So I was joking because I did tell Dan we don't need a presentation. We've been on the road show, and a couple other things I think are worth mentioning. We're being asked to speak on the state and national level with the work that we're doing with school safety. We're very proud of that. We just entertained a really large district in Maryland who came over and wanted to see how we're getting all this accomplished. I'm very proud of that work, and I just want to give Ron and his team a huge shout out because they're doing the heavy lifting, and it's really with collaboration with all these people at the table. So thank you all. One additional thing to share with you, next year you'll hear more about this year. It will be active next year. You heard a little bit about 911. We're going to have our own, I call it our own 911 center in Prince William County Schools. We'll have what we're calling our Security Operations Center. You walk into it, it will look like a 911 call center. It will be staffed 365 days. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day by trained dispatchers, so that should we have a security issue, it goes right into our call center. We'll have folks call 911 first, 9999 goes right into our dispatch center. We'll have trained dispatchers talking to our principals through a crisis, coordinating their efforts with emergency responders. We're working with a couple districts and rolling this out, and the one district that we partnered with is a little bit smaller than us, and they had 48,000 calls go through their call center in 1 year. And that could be anything from a burglary alarm going off at 3 a.m. to a security issue. So we're really excited. We're in the planning phase to get that up and running for next year, and that'll enhance our responses and our safety even more. So thank you, Supervisor Boddye, for having us, and we're happy to answer any questions you guys have.
So, one of the first, if I could get everyone to give a round of applause for our panelists. I know it ran a little bit long, but I wanted you all to get a feel for the challenges, the good, the bad, and ugly of community safety from a whole broad swath of people, for our community service agencies, to our public service, and to our schools and our transportation. As was said multiple times, these things don't happen in silos, right? An issue at school could bleed into criminality. It could be something that happens on the roadways, could bleed into enforcement issues. So all these things need to be talked about together, because that's really the only way we'll be able to tackle these issues. So we're gonna change things up a little bit. I know originally I said we were gonna do the pre-arranged questions first. We're actually gonna do questions from you all first, and if we run out of questions, which I doubt we will, we'll go into the pre-screened questions. So I'm gonna open it up. Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Nancy Armour in Oxford One District. I have a topic that goes across everyone and starts with our schools, and that is our gang problem that is all over the world. Years ago, we had a gang task force. We had a lot of gang education at a parental level in the schools, and it seems like that is a good left of the bank project that we could resurrect. So I'm just wondering what, if anything, is actively being done to resurrect some additional focus and deterrent on the gang situation.
Thank you, Ms. Armour, for that question. Chief, I don't know, again, you all.
I think, I'm gonna let the chief speak to it, because a lot of this is driven by law enforcement. Excellent point. I think it's something from a community safety standpoint that, again, involves the schools and information we're getting from there and the community. So it's definitely an issue with community safety. I don't think, and the chief's gonna correct me if I'm wrong, that we have a substantial gang problem in our county. I think there's probably activity, there's certainly loosely affiliated groups that are operating, but I know it's something we pay attention to. I know it's something that the police department has a group that pays attention to it, but it's certainly gonna be part of our overall approach to looking at community safety as an issue. Maybe become a work group out of what we do out of the committee as we look at community safety. I'll let the chief correct me on some points.
No, I mean, the gang activity in Prince William County has remained relatively steady over the last several years. We do have gangs in Prince William County, make no mistake about it. They do prey on our vulnerable young people. The schools are doing a ton of work trying to intercept that when they see kids and they start seeing signs of kids who are running into problems, and the young people that the gangs take advantage of, and when I say they're vulnerable, these are kids that are not going to school. So when you see a kid who's starting to be absent from school, that's an indicator that maybe something's going on, maybe they're gonna be more vulnerable, become part of the gang. We've worked with our federal partners. We have a gang unit. For the gangs, for us, we have a lot of intelligence on who's involved and what they're doing. And so we follow, we're a little bit, unfortunately, we're right up there. Right, on the gang stuff. So if something happens, we can go in and we can see the gang that might be involved. Talk to the folks that we know on the street, and take somebody into custody if they're both involved in criminal behavior. I do think that there is an opportunity. I think that this is what your suggestion is do a lot more stuff on the left side. And that's gonna come down to ensuring that we have young people who have proper parenting at home. We have schools that are able to identify kids who are vulnerable and to intercept them and make sure that they don't fall into gang behavior. Kids at that age, when you're talking a kid who gets into the 14, 15, 16 to 18, they're very impressionable. They're gonna, if they see, if they're not getting the services and the love and the things that they need at home, they're gonna go somewhere else. And that's what the gangs take advantage of. So I think that, having, our community safety initiative, having Wesley here, I think that's one of the challenges that we're gonna cooperatively work together. I can tell, Wesley who the people are that are involved in the gang. So these are some of the kids that we've already lost, you know, some of the kids that are already following him. But I think that he'll be able to use that information and maybe provide, in collaboration with our community services group, the services that they need to kind of steer some of those kids away from the gangs and get them into a better circumstance.
We hear about it a lot, so it's an issue that is very, much a part of the community. And so I think the chief's right. We gotta keep doing what we do on the enforcement side, build some capacity, bonding these kids to things that other than gangs, the best that we can as we work with our community, so definitely.
And I also think the education to staff and parents, because kids are talking to God knows who these days, and especially older elementary and middle school kids are being picked off by these folks who have a better way of life for them than they're trying to entice them to.
Yeah, if I could add, just from the school lens, I think, you know, we invest a lot of money and energy and resources into interventions and recognizing all those things the chief mentioned. You know, it's all about relationships between teachers and kids and SROs and kids, and there's a lot of sharing of information. Ron and his team work very closely with, you know, the school resource officers and other supports. We also have a whole team that focuses on mental health within the school division and addressing mental health needs. One of our key focuses, it's a very strategic focus, is making sure the kids are in school, you know, and making sure the kids are in school every day, that there's a connection, because we know that when kids are connected and they feel a sense of belonging, they're much less likely to engage in those behaviors. So there's a lot of focus and emphasis being placed there. Ron, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, y'all covered a lot of that. The county does have a gang response intervention team, or GRIT, that leads a multidisciplinary team. We all sit on, have members that sit on that, and we're able to share information, look at interventions, and try to do things that will help divert these kids into other activities.
The last thing I'll add is, as a parent of 7 children, which are school age, I completely hear you on that. It's something that I take seriously as well. I have one of those teenagers, 2 of them actually, that stay up until 3, 4 in the morning, TikToking, you know, tweeting with their friends and whatnot. So having that, making sure that we have that belt suspenders communication approach where we have schools reaching out to the PTOs and making sure the word gets out about that, then linking up with our law enforcement, our public safety, make sure that we're all hands on deck, because we cannot have anyone sitting on the sidelines when it comes to gang violence. So
And I'll say too, one of the things that we see from where we sit, I know Vern sees it as well, is a lot of these kids are being saved. You just don't hear those stories. And so there are interventions that are occurring, really good interventions that are occurring in the county, but we do lose some. We don't want to lose it.
And I just want to add one more thing to what Chief said, I think, and I don't want to underemphasize the role of parents here. We're really, as a division, trying to emphasize the role of parents and really providing education and training to parents about how to help manage some of those things, because you're right, it's really hard when you're a parent of a teenager and they're doing things online. I mean, we didn't grow up with these things, right? So sometimes I feel like we're a step behind, but we're always trying to stay a step ahead. And we really work a lot with parents too, through the parent education piece. If we're all rowing together, I think we're gonna be in good shape keeping kids away from those things, so.
Sir.
All right, Jesse, I had a question for the chief on the, training and the recruitment, academy. Can you give us a sense of the racial, gender, and sexual orientation of the classes?
So, when I came to the Prince William County Police Department, like I said, I was coming up on 3 years, our diversity was horrible. We're the 10th most diverse county in the country, and we were not a diverse police department at all. So we've actually changed our hiring practices. We had the Police Executive Research Forum actually come in and do a study on what we were doing in Prince William County. We've implemented all of their recommendations to improve our ability not only to hire more folks, but also to hire more diverse candidates into the police department. Those classes that you've seen over the last 2.5 years are the most diverse classes that we have brought into the Prince William County Police Department in its history. And so it's hard to make traction because we're in such a bad place to start. but we are making significant progress in that area. And did you have, you said something about the training too? Did you have a question on the training?
No, other than the fact that, as you were saying, I know we were in bad shape, and
Yeah.
part of the problem was that our classes did not improve anything. It just made it continually worse, and it sounds like we're making progress.
Well, the progress is slower than I would like, but that's because of the virtue of the fact that we were not diverse at all. And so you're taking a diverse group of folks and you're putting them into a not diverse police department. So it's gonna take a little bit of time to get there, but I am a firm believer, as long as I'm here, that our police department needs to reflect the community that we serve. I tell everybody about, number one reason is we want every kid who lives in Prince William County to be able to look up and see a police officer who looks like him or her. The other thing I will say is, I go to a lot of training in my career, a lot of training about cultural sensitivity, about bias and all those kinds of things. Best training that I ever got as a police officer on those issues was being in a police car with somebody all day long who was not like me. That's an education that I want all of my officers to have, but we're not gonna have that unless we're diverse.
The only other thing I'll add to that is, my 15-year-old, she's gonna be entering into the criminal justice program over at Garfield, and we were at National Night Out last week, and she commented on that she saw more female officers, so it actually made her more comfortable with the idea than she was before, so it definitely has.
Yeah, we are actually having a women's mentoring lunch tomorrow, so one of the other things you have to do is when you become more diverse, is you have to have systems in place to embrace the folks that are not in the majority. And so we have a women's mentoring lunch, we have groups on the department for people from different backgrounds, different religions, and you have to embrace folks, make them want to stay. So it's like I said, it's challenging, but I'm telling you, we're gonna get there.
So I've been in this county my entire life, and obviously we've seen this county grow astronomical, especially the past 10 years. I know, and Boddye, you know this, I've been to several county meetings where we talk about budget. And from what I know from the county meetings that I've been to, there's been not a large increase, not just on salary, but on the positions and the number of officers. I hear you talk about recruits and 20 recruits, this, that, and the numbers. Are those recruits just replacing retired officers? Or as this county grows in population, are we increasing the number of officers? This just doesn't go for police, but fire as well. So my question is the budget and the numbers going towards your departments as the population increases fairly? Not just in numbers of people, but salary increases as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer to your question is the police department has not grown in recent years, and that's because of the hiring challenges. So I can't ask for more police officers if I haven't filled all my vacancies, but that's the bad news. The good news is we're getting really close to being in a place where we can increase the size of the force. Like 11 supervisors now. As soon as we get to that place, I'm probably going to be asking for more officers. So it's been a challenge with the fact that we have fewer and fewer applicants out there. The best thing, in my opinion, that's happened recently is the way that the board corrected the pay issue. Now we're not losing folks, like we were. When you're losing that many people, it's like trying to fill up a bathtub when the drain's plugged. It's not easy. But we're getting within the next year, we're going to be in a really good place to be asking for more officers here. And your thought process on this is exactly right. If your population increases, your police service requests are going to increase. And the people in Prince William County have grown accustomed to a certain level of police service, and we don't want that to change.
I appreciate that question, because as you said, we've only been playing catch up over the last year or so with the pay increase that we authorized back the end of last year, and we increased it a little bit more with this recent budget. But now we're getting to a place where he mentioned the staffing plan that he's working on. If I'm on the board next year, believe me, I'll be supporting that staffing plan, because as you said, we need to not only play catch up to where we were, we need to then increase, because we've been growing the county exponentially over the last 20 years especially. So we're gonna work closely.
And just to let you know, the folks that we do have are working really hard to provide that level of service. In fact, since the fall of last year, they've been working mandatory overtime. And that's to ensure that you have the police service always that you need. But if you do that for too long, you start to burn out your folks. You know, so we don't, we're getting to a place almost where we can pull back a little bit on that, and then we start to look to increase the control.
You'll see that in the other quadrants, other areas of the quadrant. So the same thing will apply to both safety communications. We'll look and see how we're handling calls. Are we seeing any deficits in terms of performance expectations, right? Same thing with fire rescue. Stations will come online. We'll look at how we're providing the services. We'll have an evidence-informed approach to, hey, we need to add resources in these areas to keep our community safe. So that will apply, and I think you mentioned it. It'll apply to every area in terms of what we do in the county.
The last thing I'll say about that is, we're looking at the other belt and suspenders, things that we give to our officers as well. You know, take-home cars, benefits for folks that are on call, or who are doing the detective work. Also having living wages so they can afford to live in the county they serve, because as you well know, some of our police officers, a significant amount, don't live in Prince William County. They come in from Stafford, Bock here, these other jurisdictions. We wanna make sure that we're giving them competitive ways that also allows them to live in the county they serve. Because that, to me, I'm sure my partners over here will agree, that also the kind of force we want to see, where there are folks that live and breathe in our community every single day, even when they take off their day.
Would you say that's the same for fire? Are you guys still trying to fill vacancies, or are you, where does it fit in that?
Slightly different, but similar problem. Our primary problem is the way we have present, the board of supervisors has been great. The way we've measured how many people we need has been based on station location and not necessarily the workload. So we start to take a look at the workload, how often the unit is going out. For example, for an ambulance that's working a 24-hour shift, you want them actually providing patient care about 30% of the time. And that seems low, except recognize they have to refill the vehicle, they have to restock the vehicle, they have to do training, they're traveling back and forth. 30%, once you start getting above 30%, you may need to start taking a look at another unit. What we've traditionally done is look at another station, right? They're harder. So I think is, what the board's gonna see is a data informed series of proposals coming forward to take a little more look at workload than just stations.
And I think the other thing that you hear in policing often is a certain ratio of officers per population. And the problem with that is that you might have a large, what I'll call functional population, you know, where people are coming into your community, and it's deceptive because they're impinging on your resources. So what the chief is doing is they're looking at the demand. You know, where's the demand? And if we need more than 2 per 1,000, then we're gonna ask for more than 2 per 1,000. You know, so we're gonna try to be very evidence informed in the way we look at this, and make sure we craft this in a way that makes sense for Prince William County.
But I can tell you that communications is suffering the same as both of the other agencies. It's very difficult to get people to come into the 911 world. We're working 12-hour shifts, 48 hours in 4 days. We've implemented mandatory overtime as well. You know, we're 16 people down. We're trying to get people to come in. It's a rigorous job, and, you know, those of us that are in it love it, but we suffer the same conditions, you know, a wage to live in the county in which you work. So it's across the board with public safety.
So I see 2, 3 last questions. Dr. Jack, I saw you again.
Thank you. Well, I just want to first make a comment that we have a great police department. Community policing is really exceptional. It always has been. Most citizens are very comfortable to approach an officer. Officers are generally very courteous, and that is a standard in Prince William County that you don't see in a lot of other counties, I have to say. And also, all our staff here that support us. Just take Richard Weinmann. When we call him to come to a local health meeting to talk to the Planning, Environment, Transportation Committee of the Civic Association on transportation safety, he gets together with the local health coordinator, he finds out what the issue is, like Ridgefield Road and all that way back many years. And whatever it is, we get into the weeds on the traffic safety issue with the staff, and it's such great collaboration. It's quality time of public servants that it's just amazing, because we end up with a win-win situation, solving community problems and getting a big perspective on things. I was just curious from the 911 operators, what do we do to reduce their stress? I mean, they're highly trained, they are always working on, all sorts of situations across the board. It could be something minor to something major. And what do we do to help them? I will say though, and from mental health and all the services we have, our county, all the units that work together and collaborate. Our network is amazing. If you ever sat in a session on community services and mental health, you can go to everyone, you can see that they all talk to each other and they work to help the person that needs service or the parties that need service. It's an amazing place we have in Prince William County to see that in action. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Michele, if I could take back on this, question. One, I think you asked a really good question, how do we sort of help you all with that? Two, to piggyback off that, we know that police and fire have the cadet program, explore programs. Is there any sort of analog to that?
So that was a question that was posed recently, is the cadet program something that can be emulated in the 911 center? And it's really not. We don't have administrative positions to have people come in and work in that capacity. We have a very strong resiliency program within the center. We have peer support members on each of the squads. We have the behavioral therapist that's assigned to communications. We actually implemented earlier this year mandatory check-ins so that we can be proactive about people's mental health rather than reactive. So she comes in and meets with each person on the squad. If they want to talk, they can. If they don't have to. But we wanted to make people really cognizant of that is something that we are very conscious of, and we want to make sure that people feel that they are being supported if they're struggling. You know, giving extra breaks when we can. Those are the small things that we can do to try and offer support to those.
Life and death situations. That can be very stressful. As the police have the same circumstances.
Yeah, so the last thing I'll say is, we did give them a significant compensation increase along with other public safety in last year's budget. But similarly, I hope that as you all get your staffing for anything that we can do, support that, not only the folks that are doing the work, but those support systems that you just mentioned as well. I saw these last two, sir, with the hat, you first.
Hi, my name is Freddie Harden. I'm the president of Reed's Prospect Homeowners Association. My issue that I would like to address is human trafficking. And our Attorney General was here in Prince William County a few months ago. And he was taunting, his human trafficking initiative. My question to you and the chief and everyone else here is, what are we doing to really address the issue here in our community? Because I raise this question because we have an active issue in our community. And we have gone up the flagpole every which direction I know of. I'm retired military. I have contacted the federal authorities in reference to this as well. I've been engaged with Prince William County police officers in reference to this on a weekly basis. My issue is this problem has exacerbated really quickly. And what I'm afraid of is something bad is gonna happen before any action is taken. So I wanna know, what can we do outside of me and my board members and our neighborhood watch program? What more can we do? Because we're getting complaints every day. And I'm at the point now where I can't address these questions. And I'm out of ideas.
So I think we can start by saying thank you for being engaged and concerned. And obviously it's something that we put on our list as a priority around community safety. What the chief probably defined the problem, at least from where he sits, and then we can talk a little bit more about what we think is a holistic solution.
Yeah, sir, I don't know exactly what your problem is. We're gonna definitely follow up with you after this meeting so we can get the details on that. I can let you know what's going on in your particular community. On a larger scale, we do have, we're involved with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have a task force officer that works on human trafficking here in Prince William County. And so one of the things that you have to do on human trafficking is, again, a lot of times people picture human trafficking as some young person being scooped off the street, being taken into, kidnapped and being forced to be enslaved into a world. That's not what most of the human trafficking is in our country. A lot of the human trafficking that occurs in our country is again, we go to vulnerable young people that are being manipulated by folks who want to make money off them. And so, again, the kids that are the most vulnerable are kids that are not going to school, are kids that are constantly being reported as missing children. And so what we do on our side is we have our officers, when we have kids like that, we refer them over to the social services side to look at those families to make sure that they're getting the services that they need so that those kids don't become the victims of these predators. On the predator side, if we do have information suggesting that somebody is involved in this type of behavior, we'll get together with our federal partners, we'll open a case, and we'll do everything we possibly can to get it right. One of the difficulties that we run into with the victims in these cases, or the young people who are the victims in these cases, oftentimes getting them to cooperate against the offender because they have been manipulated so bad is very difficult. But we also have independent organizations that help us with that. And it's a matter of building trust with that kid, rebuilding trust with that kid, and getting them to cooperate. Because we have successful cases that we made, but if you have particular circumstances going on in your community, let us know, and I can let you know where we are with it.
I think, the other part of it, I think goes kind of the hand in it too, right? How we engage you all about that, how transparent we are on the issue and what we need to do to prevent some of this is an area we can improve on, I think, as a government and as a community. So a lot of what we talk about really needs to be a community coordinated response to a lot of these things that are going on. And so that means all of us are at the table and all of us are accountable for discussing what the problem is, what are our plans, and how are we having success. And we need to be transparent around that piece too, so. Great question.
Just to let you know, that was a pretty large scale federal operation in the region. That was looking at the businesses that were involved in this behavior. And it was pretty successful in getting some of these folks arrested. So.
Go ahead. I think that in tandem with human trafficking issues, some of the other concerns we talked about, it's also about building capacity within community, utilizing our community-based organizations who are also doing the very important groundwork in partnership with the institutions here, and making sure that as government, we're able to support them as well in community, in coordination, that interagency ability that we have, I think, within community safety is convening power with all the other folks to make sure the right folks are at the table.
Yeah, correct. And as far as the schools go, it doesn't fall under our purview, but our student services department for the last 15 or so years has been focused on human trafficking. They have staff that are dedicated to that work closely with the police department, social services, all those committees to bring education and awareness to the schools and to their communities. And it's a nationally recognized program, so we've been at it for quite a while also.
So two final things I'll add to that is, one, again, thank you for bringing that to our attention, because again, the whole point of the Community Safety Initiative is to go all to you all and see what those community needs are. If you're seeing a lot of that in community, we need to know that so we can coordinate the proper resources. In terms of children that are at risk, one of the first things that we did in 2020 was restart the New Horizons Instant Home initiative, which looks at these vulnerable kids that are either dealing with substance misuse, addiction in their families, these really at-risk kids that are at risk of sort of drifting away, and getting that back into these homes where we see those kinds of things, because they might get a referral from the school system, but if we don't have the right personnel from the county side to deal with those, especially at-risk youth, we risk losing them completely to things like human trafficking. The last thing is, we also have the new Child Advocacy Center, which started up last year. The chief's point on undoing this conditioning that happens to these children along the way is also making sure they don't have to relive that trauma over and over again. And bringing together law enforcement, social services, the judicial folks, all in the same building, so that kid only has to tell that story one time, and how they do it over and over again, really decreases the amount that they'll have to relive that trauma and eventually shut down and not re-engage and cooperate with law enforcement. We've seen good success around that, but those are programs we just restarted the last couple of years, and we hope that some of the conversations we have now will get to the bend, getting more of those resources before it gets to that crisis when we lose that child to human trafficking out. Last question.
Yes, so you made a comment earlier saying that we are playing catch up on paying living wages for police and fire, and doing so, we actually increase our staff there when our crimes that are not so high. Why would you vote yes on a 70% salary raise for yourself?
So that's not exactly within the purview of what we're talking about here, but when we're talking about the dollars of that, we're only talking about a few hundreds of thousands of dollars versus the millions of dollars that we're looking at because of budgets. As if you followed that conversation, I actually proposed much lower increases for us as a staff to go along with that, because my initial thought is we should not be having increases much more disproportional than the commensurate increase we're giving to our staff. I didn't receive enough support for either one of those proposals, so it eventually got to a point where I had to make a judgment call. Do I oppose this budget that does give 18% pay raises to our public safety because something I wanted didn't get through, or do I make that judgment call and give those pay raises to our public safety? My ideal world, we would have those much more modest pay raises for ourselves, but I was in a situation where I had to make that choice, and I'd much rather move the budget forward to get that much needed help for our public safety folks. Any other final thoughts, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a Narcan program for?
We do. Our officers carry, it's a great question, because this fentanyl and these opioids are a problem in our community. It's kind of like a secret assassin. A lot of these kids are taking these things, put things in their system, they don't realize fentanyl is laced with fentanyl, and they end up in this, very serious condition. But our officers have the ability to administer Narcan in the event they come across, and they do it on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, we have a robust program in the school division also. We have staff training that's in all of our schools. We train all of our school security officers on how to use Narcan when they carry it also.
I think one of the unique spots where community safety sits in this is obviously how do we train the community, right? Our folks who are on this side of the table, they know how to use it, but do you all know how to use it? It's part of the community who know how to use it. So having an opportunity to do community-based trauma-informed trainings in community, in partnership with folks who are already doing it on this side, it is also going to be a pretty high priority within our shop.
All right, that was the last question we have. Really appreciate everyone coming out. We know we didn't get every single person's question, so please come. My Constituent Services Director, Adam, will collect all your continued questions. We'll get it out to the panel and answer all the questions we can. Again, we recorded this. You can go to our website, occoquandistrict.net, to see the video. Please share it with your friends. And again, thank you so much for coming out, everyone. Thank you to our panelists.